Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Adam Tomlin, host of Act Out Podcast, a show challenging the idea that compassion is weakness and redefining what it means to live, work, and build a meaningful life. Before podcasting, Adam was an attorney, successful on paper but disconnected from himself. After doing the hard work of confronting his own mental health, he's now on a mission to help people pursue something deeper, a life, a living, and a real difference. Adam, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Hey, Joy, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on.
All right, so I want us to start from the beginning, the successful but empty phase, right? So you were an attorney doing everything right on paper, but like you said, something was off. So what did that feel like?
I think the best way to describe that, the feeling that I had, an image comes to mind actually. I think of a black hole, and that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like there was a black hole, like inside of me, where every like external achievement, like everything that I did that I thought was going to bring not only happiness but like a sense of identity in myself. I expected those things to do that, and then whenever they would happen, it just felt like they would just like go inside, and that would be it. I didn't feel any different whatsoever, and so I think that was kind of that was the toughest part for me, was that you were right. Like I had all of these things. I went to law school. I became an attorney. Had a have a wife, a kid. Like living what I thought was supposed to be the American dream, but I felt absolutely empty. It was a really weird juxtaposition.
Okay, all right. Like you said, living the American dreams, but also you spoke about, avoiding emotions, right? You said you spent years avoiding your emotions. So why do you think many people do that? Especially you. Why did you, avoid your emotions?
So whenever I was growing up, we didn't talk about feelings. We didn't talk about like, hey, this is what's going on in your body. This is what like happiness feels like, or oh, you're feeling this way. That's like nervousness or anxiety. That makes sense. We didn't talk about any of that, and so I think growing up for me, uh, all feelings and all emotions were taboo. It wasn't just like the uncomfortable, although the uncomfortable ones were certainly the worst, like fear or anxiety. Like I didn't know how to properly express those or anything like that. But then also on the flip side, the like the good emotions, like the happy and things like that. I had no frame of reference as to like how you were supposed to act whenever you were happy, or what was even going on in your body in the first place that like could help you indicate that you were happy. And so, certainly for me, that was where my fear of emotions kind of came from. I think growing up, I had this very big misconception that feelings were something to be conquered. They weren't like data points to kind of help you navigate life and where you want to go. They were something that you would have to fight and you could overcome. Um, and so what that have like kind of how that manifested for me, what I would do is like the uncomfortable emotions. I was, man, I really, really don't want to feel these. These make me feel bad. Maybe I can just like push those down and be able to just kind of like stuff them on the inside. And it's like, well, it's really hard to do that with uncomfortable emotions. I bet if I start with like good ones, and if I can push the good ones down, then it'll become easier for me to push the bad emotions down. And I actually became really, really good at at suppressing like positive emotions. And and so like, something good would happen. Like, I'm supposed to be happy. Why am I just like blah right now? It didn't make any
Mm.
sense at the time, but it was because whenever I was younger, I thought, man, if I can just push this stuff down, I'll be okay whenever something bad happens. But all that happened was I didn't feel good whenever something good happened, and still
Mm.
felt bad whenever anything bad happened.
Right. Wow. I'm trying to understand this, right? Sometimes somebody suppressing their emotion could be as a result of how they were trained, right? Or probably their environment. Because
Mhm.
over here, men are like supposedly, right? Men are not supposed to feel some certain kind of emotions, right? Especially
Mhm.
fear. As a man, why are you afraid? They always say things like that. Why are you
Mhm.
afraid? As a man, why do you cry? As a man, why are you angry? So I want to know exactly where your own suppression of emotion came from, actually.
So I think for me, where it originated was the lack of access for anyone like safe that I could talk to about
Mm.
feelings or about emotions. There was no place where I could go and I could talk to someone and say like, "Hey, I'm feeling this way," or just like kind of like let it out, and then someone would be like, "Hey, man, that actually makes all the sense in the world." So there wasn't that, and that certainly put me like on my own, where I had to kind of figure out feelings and emotions, from scratch and just kind of observing like the culture around me and also Hollywood, like the action movies. So I grew up in the 90s. And as you were kind of describing this, like men don't feel fear, all this, I thought about like all the movies I watched as a kid where my idea of a man was like Jean-Claude Van Damme in Kickboxer or Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. And you were supposed, those guys, they were just courageous all the time. They always
Yeah.
acted tough and macho. And so I just assumed that is how every man should act. And if I felt any different, then I was less than.
Wow. Okay. So I think this issue should be addressed actually. I don't know how we can address it, but those
Mhm.
same movies, younger ones are still watching it. And I still see some children like, oh no, I'm a man. I'm not supposed to do this. I feel like they should do something about that. Probably show a little bit of emotions when it comes to men in movies, right? So
Mhm.
yeah. Okay.
No,
So
I think I mean, and granted, like that was like early 90s and stuff, whenever I was growing up. And I have a son who's 3 years old now, and they're starting to get different a little bit. I think there's a little bit of progress. Like the shows that he watches talk a lot about like emotions and feeling and being able to regulate. And so I think that it's starting to kind of come into the culture more, but you are absolutely right. We have a long way to go before we're where we need to be.
exactly. All right. So thank you so much for that one, actually. And talking about, rewiring the brain. You
Hmm.
talk about rewiring the brain. What does that actually look like in real life?
Hmm. Okay, so I have something called CPTSD or complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mm.
Uh, and how that kind of like how that happened to me. So with CPTSD, it's a little different because it's not exactly something that happened to you. It was something that didn't happen to you. You didn't have access to emotionally safe caregivers growing up, and so my brain learned that if I have a feeling or if I have something uncomfortable, something bad happen, it is on me. Like I've got to figure this out on my own. So whenever I was faced with a problem, my brain saw that and instantly went back to that lesson that it learned whenever I was, I don't know, 2 years old. Like, hey, this is on you. You've got to figure it out. And so if something happens, my brain just whoop, okay, so it's all on me. And so that is how you kind of that's how it manifests later in life. That's people are like, trauma or whatever it happened to me whenever I was, or whenever or this thing happened to me 30 years ago. It shouldn't affect me now, but it does affect you now because uh, it happened whenever your brain was still forming and still developing, and that's why it has such an effect on you. And so, in order to rewire your brain, it takes a million tiny little steps. And essentially, what you need to do is be able to show your brain or show yourself, hey, if this happens, it doesn't necessarily mean this, like we were taught growing up. It can What can actually happen is this, and this instead of that. And so, if your brain sees that once, it's like, oh, okay, so maybe we'll see this one out. And if you can show it consistently, over time, like, hey, this happens, something good can happen. This happens, something good can happen. It's not like that we learned earlier. If it happens enough time, your brain's like, you know what, man, I think you're right. And so that gets the ball rolling, so to speak.
All right. Okay. Hmm. All right. So, you actually mentioned CPTSD. I always hear of PTSD, right? But
Hmm.
I never knew there was a CPTSD. And also, talking about ADHD. How did that
Yes.
change how you saw yourself?
So I kind of joke with people, and I say like, I don't just have ADHD, I have like AD4K. It's really bad. But I think the biggest thing for me with ADHD was I did not understand the effect that it had on my emotions and the way that I felt things. I thought it was totally just about like being in school or going to work. Like, hey, I'm going to have a tough time with attention. I just need to focus a little bit harder. But that is just like the very, very tip of the surface, very, very tip of the surface. What actually is going on inside is a cacophony of just feelings and a brain that like puts in a lot of effort to try to get a couple of things done, and it can make like very small things that happen to you feel like the worst thing in the world, and
Hmm.
you almost feel like, oh my gosh, I'm overreacting. This is a little thing. I shouldn't be like, screaming over this. And so, it kind of, excuse me, it kind of makes you feel like you're out of sync with your body, and
Hmm.
you're like, I can't trust my body because it got like so upset that it like cried in the fetal position for 15 minutes whenever I got that bad grade or whatever. Like I can't trust myself. So that was kind of tough for me. And then also, I'm sorry, I just feel like I keep babbling, but I just thought of this where another thing that really affected me was that there are certain things that come to me incredibly quickly. Like my brain can be like, boop, boop, oh man, that's so cool. I can't believe you figured that out.
Hmm.
But growing up though, I thought that meant everything was supposed to come to me that natural. And if it didn't happen like that, then I was really, really bad at it. And so it was something that like I didn't give myself permission to practice and to make mistakes because I thought mistakenly that like if I didn't just get it immediately at the beginning, then I was terrible.
All right. Well, okay. That's new, right? But at the same time, at the same time, I feel like I could relate to a little bit of it, right? When you spoke
Uh-huh.
about when something happens and you start to think it's something very big, even though it's not as big as what you think it is. So
Hmm.
I had a friend, right, that always tells me, anytime I'm always feeling that way, he always says, listen, it's never as bad as it seems. He made me recite it all the time, right?
Uh-huh.
It's never as bad as it seems. And yes,
Do
when
you
I
find
do,
that helpful?
yes, I do.
You do?
Because
Okay.
I think I do because I always think it's oh my God, this is really bad. But when he tells me it's never as bad as it seems, my brain is just trying to make it look like it's, then I calm down and try
Hmm.
to reflect on it. Like, okay, maybe, just maybe it's not as bad as it seems, right? So it helps sometimes, right?
So
So, yeah.
it sounds like what's happening there is you're like as you're kind of like in that moment, you are kind of like in the like in the amygdala or like in an area of your brain where you're feeling more than being able to think. But once you say that to yourself, it can get you up into, like the frontal lobe where you have a little bit more control over, kind of control over yourself. And you can think a little bit more logically. So that makes sense that it could help you like that.
Exactly. I think you got that right, actually. It makes me think logically. Because sometimes I tend to just do the most, in fact, insensible things just because I'm, pumped up and stuff like that. All right. So I want us to talk about, make a life, make a living, make a difference. That's actually a very powerful framework. So can you break it down for us? Let me, understand.
Oh yeah, sure. So I wish that it was mine, but I plagiarized the idea to plagiarize the idea in the first place. So so whenever President John F. Kennedy was in I think it was like a some private school, obviously the dude had like millions of dollars, but the headmaster would say like ask not what Hanover Academy can do for you. Ask what you can do for Hanover Academy. And
Oh.
so, like 20 years later or whatever, when Johnny was writing his inaugural address, he was like, "Oh yeah, I can just switch out Hanover Academy or whatever it was for America, and I'm a genius." Whenever I was in college, our motto was make a life, make a living, and make a difference. And that always resonated with me. By the way, it's cool that I use it now because they changed it to something else, which that was on them because this new motto is not nearly as good as the other. So I'll take it. But it was something that always resonated with me because it felt like that was kind of the dimensions of a complete life. To what the way I see make a life is how you relate to yourself and how well you know yourself and how well you can work with yourself. Um, in which I guess this is kind of a good way of saying it. Like I think whenever I was growing up, I thought that discipline was the ability to master to overcome yourself. Like you would have to fight all these things, and once you could beat them down, then you could be okay. But the way that I see it now with making a life, what discipline is the ability to work with yourself consistently and compassionately. Uh,
Mm.
if you can, if you can kind of be in a place of curiosity instead of judgment. So if you do something, uh, I think it may be a little natural, going, "Oh my gosh, you're such an idiot. You're the worst in the world."
Mm.
But if you can kind of take a step back and be like, I wonder what was going on, and take it from kind of start from that way, then you're actually able to get better. And it's kind of like it replaces this shame-based way of just kind of trying to like fight yourself. So yeah, that's the way I kind of see making a life is to be able to be disciplined in the sense of being able to work with yourself with compassion and curiosity. And making a living is, I think, another misconception that I had growing up was that we were all just inherently lazy people that just if given the opportunity, we'd just sit on the couch and munch on potato chips and watch really bad 80s actions movies like I did whenever I was a kid. But that's actually not at all what I've seen from experience. Um, people actually want to people have dreams and they want to work for them. And that is something that I think that is inherently like in human nature. What the problem is that we are stuck in this system where you have to work for someone else's dreams, and you are going that you're having to work for someone else's happiness. And we're having these these jobs where, I actually saw something with I think it was McDonald's a couple of years ago. McDonald's Corporation had come out with like um, a mock like a financial sheet to like help people do like not an income, but like, why in the world can I not think of the like a budget? Yes. And they were like, hey, so if you this is how you can spend and you'll be okay. Even with McDonald's budget that came out, they were uh they were like, hey, you're going to need to get a second job here. So most a lot of times people are having to work two or three jobs, and they have absolutely no no breath. Like there is no space to be able to like, hey, if something bad happens, I can take a couple of days off or do something like this. No, like people are one medical incident or just like one bad thing happened away from being out on the streets. And so whenever people are kind of in that space, you're in survival mode, and you're not able to to adequately take care of yourself or your family. So if we can get into a place where there's a basic income structure for everyone, where everyone has housing, has basic income, we're not going to see just like lazy folks, not lazy folks just sitting on the couch, blah blah blah. No, people are going to be out, and people are going to be working hard because that's human nature. And
All
then
right.
finally, I'm sorry, I forgot about the making a difference.
Okay, yeah, you can go on.
With making a difference, that's combining making a life and making a living. Because once you've worked with yourself, once you can practice discipline in that kind of compassionate, curious way, and you have like your housing, your medical care, you have those things taken care of, you're going to be one. You're going to go out.
Mm.
You're going to want to take care of your fellow person, your neighbors. I mean, that's human nature. So what I would like to do is just get us in an environment where human nature can work on a macro level. That's my goal.
Mm. All right. Wow. Thank you so much, Adam. You just made me understand that it's not just it's not being a Superman, like you said, how they taught us to be, always being active, Superman fairy tales and all. No, it's not about that. It's about compassion, consistency, and self-love, most
Hmm.
importantly. Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, I I now have like a new perspective to these things, and all thanks to you, actually. All
I
right.
do what I
So
can.
okay, so I want you to give a message to my listeners, right?
Hmm.
For someone who feels stuck, overwhelmed, or like they feel like they are failing, what would you want them to hear?
Mm. Uh, First of all, that what they're feeling is valid. Um, I, I don't necessarily know the exact reason why that you feel stuck or any of those things, but I promise you, you aren't wrong for feeling that way, and you're not bad for feeling that way. You are a human, um, and I I understand uh, I understand how you feel, uh, but just know that you actually do not have to feel that way. Uh, whenever you're ready, and you can actually what the best way of starting this out is whenever you are in a like clear-headed space, um, and just you do something, just kind of ask yourself like, hey, I wonder what was going on there, and be compassionate. So it's you don't try this whenever you feel like you've just made the biggest mistake of your life and everything's awful. It's not going to work in that moment at the beginning. Okay, you need to be regulated, clear head, and practice then to be compassionate with yourself and to be curious. Start there. And as time goes on, you're going to be able to kind of like grow that like window of tolerance a little bit. And so things that used to like really get you activated and really get you dysregulated will over time not happen as often. But
Mm.
it is very important to start whenever you are in a very like in a regulated space, and then let yourself grow from there.
All right. So yeah, thank you, Adam. This was such a real and thought-provoking tongue twister right there. It was a thought-provoking thought-provoking conversation. It's one that challenges how, we think about success and mental health, right? So yeah, thank you so much for this. And I have a lot of questions, right? But I'm looking at them. Bye.
Yeah, I understand. I've had so much fun. And you have such a great energy, and I love your questions. Like this has been a blast. Well, thank you so much.
Ooh, all right, thank you. Thank you so much. It brings me to the final segment, right? I want us to do
Mhm.
this segment. It's called the rapid fire segment.
Oh, okay. All
All
right, I'm
right.
ready.
Okay, so starting now, happiness is
Happiness is obtainable.
obtainable. Okay, freedom means
Freedom means access to opportunity.
all right. Strength looks like
Strength looks like vulnerability,
all right.
yeah, vulnerability and compassion.
Okay, and finally, the world changes when.
When you stop focusing on changing the world and work on yourself.
All right. Okay. So thank you so much, Adam. Where can listeners
Those felt
get to
good.
that was actually where can, where can listeners get to know more about you and what you do?
The Act Out podcast is on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts from. We're also on social media at the Act Out podcast. We'd love to have you join us. I'll work really hard to keep you informed and entertained.
All right. So thank you, Adam. I'll be reaching out to you after this on Instagram, right? Yeah.
All
All
right,
right.
that sounds good.
Okay, and to my listeners, thanks for tuning into Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, make sure to share to someone you think might need this and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episode. Thank you, Adam. Do have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
Bye.